Okay, it's recording, so hopefully it's recording. Because it's recording. So I wanted to talk a little bit tonight about two things, two kind of separate topics. One is just to do a quick little ethics lesson, so we're all kind of on the same page. From the first episode where Dorothy is literally like eating her own shit in this crazy kind of state of anxiety where she can't handle holding on to the information that Rose is enjoying happiness that is false or based on like a false truth. And we see this happen in a number of episodes where Dorothy literally eats herself alive from the digestive tract, like literally from her rectum back up through her entire body, because she cannot handle someone enjoying a truth that, where she has information that is going to change someone's happiness or like relationship to an issue. It's exclusively, and we see it in this episode, it's exclusively when someone else is really happy and they don't have the full picture. So Dorothy thinks that it is her prerogative, and she has been put on this earth by someone's dead god to like come down and speaketh the truth. And it, especially in this episode too, it really gets me thinking about how I used to do, I would do like guest lectures in a couple of the different schools around Toronto about harm reduction, because that's my classically trained harm reductionist. I spent many of my first kind of classrooms having arguments around the ethical propriety or like moral sanctity of harm reduction, as opposed to trying to keep people off drugs. So for those that don't know, like harm reduction, I'm not going to explain it, just fucking Google it. But it was often posed to me that because I was in support of harm reduction, then I was in support of people using drugs. And let's be honest, I am in support of people using drugs. In fact, I'm high right now. You're welcome. Why do you think these sermons go so well? It's like all of my synapses are firing at the same time. No, I switched my meds. And the breakdown in communication, I feel like, is echoed in this episode with Dorothy, where she comes from a deontological or duty-based ethical framework where like good is good, bad is bad, ne'er the twain shall meet. And historically, harm reduction has been framed as by like capital L liberals and capital N NDP as kind of like a utilitarian or pragmatic ethical framework where it's like do the most amount of good and the least amount of harm. And I think that there's actually, like, in those conversations, there's less room for thinking about context. So actually there's an incredible theorist and ethicist from New Brunswick named Tim Christie, who writes about thinking about a virtue ethical framework, which is about like do the right thing at the right time for the right reasons to the right people, blah, blah, blah. But it's essentially all about context and about allowing our ethical decisions to be made in context. And I think that actually makes the most sense than falling back on these other kind of ethical codes from like way the fuck. And what happened in these classrooms was that there was an opportunity to think about how we actually work together, and that it's actually not about being right or wrong, but it's about how we share space as community members. And specifically when I was training social service workers, it's like, you're here to make people's lives better. You're here because you want to support people in accessing their goals and in building community. It doesn't matter if you want to do drugs or you think drugs are bad. That, like, if you want to support and build healthier and happier communities, there's a lot of things that you can do that don't have to be giving out clean syringes in a harm reduction room. You could do like policy level decolonization work. You could work at a school lunch program. You could make sure that family court systems have legal aid that's accessible. You could go to school and become a trauma-focused therapist and make sure that that's like accessible to folks for low or no cost. Like there's lots of things that we can do to ensure our communities are more inclusive and healthier. I hate the word healthy, but like healthier for all people rather than work in a fucking needle exchange. If that's not your jam, don't do it. But do we need to make enemies of people who have a different framework than ours, or can we find some common ground? So this is the issue that I have with Dorothy, is that she is very stuck in this idea of this is right and this is wrong, so because it's wrong, I also need to not only hold my idea of truth as singular, which I think is one of our problems, is that we see, as a community, or as a society, is that we see our truth as being singular, and that discounts the possibility of another person's truth existing. So because I believe something to be true, it means that whatever you believe, if it's not mine, can't be true. So while that's also a problem, so it's like, it's one, truth isn't singular. Two, we're all in this together. And C, 1, 2, and C, then it's also, it's not about being right. It's about finding ways to make us all happy. So that's why I love getting sprayed down with complimentary prune juice. Because it makes me happy.